Begin self-publishing episode number 34. Using an assisted publishing service successfully with Lucienne Boyce.
Interested in self-publishing but don't know where to start? Want to get your book onto Amazon? Want to hold your paperback book in your hands? Learn how on the Begin Self-Publishing podcast with your host, Tim Lewis.
On today's show, I interview Lucienne Boyce, who is a successful historical fiction and non-fiction author. I don't talk to her about historical fiction, but rather the fact that she used an assisted publishing company rather than doing all the self-publishing herself. These are companies where you pay a fee and the company will publish the novel for you. The trouble with assisted publishing is that the whole area is full of scammers and people trying to rip off self-publishers. There's a long history of what's called vanity presses, which are publishing houses which charge a fee for people to publish and then don't provide a decent service. When I heard that she'd used a publishing company successfully and been happy with the results, I wanted to find out why. So now over to the interview. Why did you decide to use a company like Silverwood Books to help you self-publish your book rather than trying to do it yourself?
Well, I did look at a few other options, including do it yourself. But in the end, I went with Silverwood because it was really important to me to have a quality product. I wanted something that would stand next to mainstream published books, that in a book on a bookshop shelf, if it got into one, would be indistinguishable from mainstream books. Now, I don't have the skills to publish a book, and I didn't particularly want to spend time learning them either. I'd rather spend more time on writing. So I needed somebody I could rely on to produce a quality book and to advise me at every stage, of the process. And I think that Silverwood were offering that. For example, you get a named point of contact with them, and they're very good at answering emails and phone calls. And before I sort of decided to go with them, I went to a talk that was run by Helen Hart, who runs the company. And I was very impressed with her and the way she spoke and her knowledge and professionalism. So I think those are sort of reasons I went with Silverwood.
Okay. It's a British company, isn't it, Silverwood?
It's a Bristol company, actually, and I live in Bristol, and it's really nice. They're local to me, and they're part of the Bristol business community, so it's nice using a local company.
Do they just do British authors, or do they work globally, do you know?
I think they'll work globally, yeah. I think they've got, there's one author at least I know lives in France. I'm sure that there's another one that lives in, is it Sweden? Yeah, so, they'll work, globally.
Okay. When you were selecting a company to help you self-publish, what criteria did you look for when you chose Silverwood Books?
Yeah, probably repeating myself here a bit. Yeah. But first of all was the quality of the product. And I looked at their books and compared them to other books, other assisted publishing companies and so on. The fact that the company is run by a publishing professional, a woman who's worked in publishing, and she's also a published author herself, so she's got a real insight into the business from both sides, really. The other thing I was very interested in was the consistency of approach that they offer, because if by choosing a company that could project manage all the stages, I felt I ended up with a sort of consistent project in terms of its look and feel and the way it was presented. And that meant that it sort of could be time managed efficiently as well, I thought, with them timetabling print runs and so on. And that was important to me because, you probably agree that time is the most precious thing. Yeah. And I want to spend time on my writing and my creative work. But I think probably the most important thing was a book that would look good. And I felt that with, say, for example, my two historical novels I've published with them, which are both set in the 18th century, Bloody Bones and To the Fairland, the attention to detail of the design of those books, the fonts, the palette, the colours used, the covers, it gave the books that sort of right period feel for historical fiction. And yet when I moved to write a non-fiction book on the Bristol suffragettes, they came up with a completely different look and layout and a different colour scheme. And it's just fantastic. They matched the product to the book. Do you see what I mean by that? It's the quality, and the attention to detail that I was looking for. Yeah.
Okay, so do they produce was it paperback and hardback, or just paperback?
I've done a paperback, and the 2 novels are both out in ebook as well.
Oh, okay. So what exactly did Silverwood Books do for you, and what did you have to do yourself?
What did they do for me? Well, they sort of prepared the book, typeset it, designed the cover, printed and delivered it. They produced the ebooks of the 2 novels, and they sort out the ISBN numbers, the Amazon Look Inside feature, trade distribution. They provided an advanced information sheet which you can use, to go into bookshops with, into media or whatever. They dealt with the UK legal deposit compliance requirements, editing and proofreading as well. So a whole range of products, and you can of the process. And you can actually buy in sort of extra things if you want, like postcards and bookmarks, for example. And what's nice about that, of course, is that they will be a perfect match to the book because they've designed the book.
Yeah.
It all looks really nice together. So those are sort of things they did, really pretty much everything, and as I say, managing the whole sort of process. But with the editing and proofreading side of things, I actually also use an editorial consultant. So before Silver would see the book, it's been through an editorial process for, the story and structure and that sort of side of it. And it also goes to a professional editor who checks it for grammar and that sort of thing. So it does have to, that's not from Silverwood, but I do use those other services as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So they actually, then they, for me, add in another read through, get a reader's report and another edit. And then with the proofreading, the final proofreading, I do it myself, probably with the help of the other editor, who happens to be my sister, who is professional. So she's a translator and editor. So she's a professional person working in publishing, so I'm very lucky there.
Yeah, so it's a no-brainer to have your sister look at it.
Oh, absolutely, and she's very, very good. She's very meticulous, pedantic in a good way. Yeah. She won't mind me saying that.
Okay, what is the best piece of advice you would give a writer who's choosing between self-publishing on their own or using a company to help them self-publish?
Well, I think in the end, everyone's got to choose what works best for them. You've got to balance, your skills with your budget and the amount of time you've got. Like I've said, for me, time was very important. But I know that a lot of writers do thrive on the do-it-yourself model. They enjoy it and they do really well with it. So I think my main advice would be that whatever route you do choose, just get the very best you can afford. Try not to skimp on anything. I think that's the best thing. And I also would say that I think something that I think puts some people off assisted publishing is the idea that they might lose control of their project. Because obviously a lot of people self-publish because they want creative control of what they're doing. I don't think that assisted publishing necessarily means that you do lose control. And I think some authors do confuse taking good professional advice with losing control of their project. So I think, to bear that in mind, you are still in charge of what's happening. It is still your project. No one's going to, they shouldn't run off with it, should we say. And I just think, for me, I was thinking, if I had £1 for every time I've heard a writer say they don't want to edit their book, they don't want to listen to what an editor's got to say, they don't want to consider changes, they don't think there's a better way of doing things. And I think that's a real shame because you can learn so much from working with professionals like the company I use. And for me, it was a huge learning opportunity, and it still is, because they know the business. So those are sort of 2 bits of advice, really, I suppose.
Yeah, because, there are, I think, another problem with assisted publishing, as we discussed in the pre-chat before the interview went live, was there are quite a lot of fairly scammy, low-quality assisted companies around. So what would be your advice to people to make sure they don't go with one of those sort of companies?
Well, I think if you can talk to people, look at their list and see if they've published and contact those authors. I've been contacted a few times by people considering Silverwood, and I'm happy to talk to them and tell them, what worked and maybe some things that didn't. And people we all have different approaches to things. So, it may not suit them. But I think it's very important if you can actually, if they're willing they're quite happy for you to talk to someone that's used their services candidly. I think that's very useful. Look at what they're producing, look at their product, look at their books, pick up a book and hold it, look at it, and does it look good? Yeah, and I think it's very easy to see that sort of, what a quality book looks like compared to a poor one, really.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, some things scream at you, don't they? You know, the margin's too small. Is the print too small? What sort of quality paper are they using? What's the cover design like? I think, what else? What was sort of about to help people choose? Yes, talk to them. Find out if you think they're the sort of people you can work with. Are they going to respond to your questions in a helpful and complete way? You know, they're not going to fob you off. They're not going to be busy. They're not going to be unfriendly. You know, you've got to work quite closely with these companies, haven't you, over a project that's going to be incredibly important to you. All the effort you've put in to write the book, you want the best for it at the end. So I think things like that would help you to make that choice. And of course, being a member of something like the Alliance of Independent Authors, or looking at their website and checking the watchdog sort of sections, because you do pick up an awful lot from just reading a few blogs, don't you, and Googling a company name, and you'll soon find out if people have had a bad experience with them or whatever.
Yeah, well, they say put the name of the company and then scam after it.
Oh, okay.
At Google and see how many come out.
But I think, do some research first. And if anything doesn't feel quite right, you know, don't rush into anything. Sit and think about it. Make sure that they give you a full and complete quote and really lay out what services they include and don't include. Because I gather there are certain providers who start adding things on, you know, about halfway through the project, and you hear these terrible stories of people's costs running on and on into extra hundreds of pounds, which is just amazing, isn't it? So make sure that before you start, you've got a clear quote, exactly what are they going to provide at what cost, and make sure that you're very clear about what you're getting for your money.
Okay, which brings me on to my next question.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of costs, was there anything that you had to pay for in addition to the package costs shown on the Silverwood site, or was it that mainly you just paid the package price and then you got that deal?
I think I paid for things like the bookmarks, things like that, posters, that sort of thing, publicity. I'm trying to think if there was anything else really.
But there wasn't anything that was essential to the publishing process that they suddenly added on in the last minute.
No, absolutely not, because they do. I think they did provide a very clearly laid out cost, and they stuck to the cost. I mean, at no point did I get a note saying, "Oh, well, actually, that's going to cost us a lot more than we thought." Any of that sort of business, and no, they do offer a large range of optional services. You can buy in marketing services and so on, but they're not going to force you to buy them, and they're going to tell you they're there, and then it's up to you really if you want them or don't. So I sort of like that, you know, a sense. And I mean, I think from a business point of view, there's nothing in it for them. If they force people or con people into buying services that aren't necessary or that they don't really want, it's not going to do them any good in the end, is it?
No.
It's not these scam companies any good in the end. They might make a few bucks now, but they're not going to last. So I think, I think it was... Yeah, I think it was all fairly clear.
Yeah, well, I mean, their packages, looking at their website, range from about £2,000 to £6,000.
Yes, I mean, well, of course, it's like any creative project, isn't it? Or any project, really. It's like doing anything in your house, isn't it? Somebody says it will cost you 500 quid, and before you know it, you spent 1,500. You don't want it to be like that. So that's why I think it's very important to get written down in advance a contract and a quotation saying what exactly is included for your money.
Yeah, I mean, what they seem to give for they line out what their packages are, and
that's right. Yeah, it's on the website, so you can see. And there's the different levels of service as well. Yeah, so I think they're pretty upfront about it. Yeah.
Are you going to keep publishing with Silverwood Books, or you're not tempted to start doing it yourself, or use a different company or anything like that?
Well, I definitely would like to bring my next. The Bloody Bones novel is the first in a series, and I'd like to bring the next book out with Silverwood later this year. Yes, so I'm very happy to use them because I like working with them. I mean, that's another important criteria, I suppose. You know, can you work with these people?
Yeah.
And I think they share a passion for books, and it's good to work. You know, the thing about a lot of scam companies isn't it? It's decided that they actually really don't care about books that much, do they? Because they wouldn't scammers if they did. So to get working with people who actually do care about books is fantastic. That's what you want, someone that shares your passion. It's a business relationship, but it's still important to have that, I think, for me anyway, that kind of sense that I know they actually care about what they're doing and what they produce. So yeah, I'm definitely want to use Silverwood again. Yeah.
Okay. So if people want to find out about you and your historical fiction and non-fiction books, how can they find out about you?
Oh, well, there's a website, which is www.lucienneboyce.com, and that's LucienneBoyce.com. And the books are all available on Amazon as well. So if I'm allowed to, am I allowed to say that?
Yes, you can. You can do self-promotion as long as it's not too long on this show.
Oh, well, yes, it's always difficult. But, as well as it can be ordered through bookshops, and it's available they're available in a range of ebook formats as well, actually. But yes, if you wanted to look at that certain very large ebook retailer online, they are on there as well. My website, there's a lot more information about the books. On the Bloody Bones, for example, I'm putting up quite a lot of extra sort of historical and background information to the novel, which is fun, giving that sort of information around the story, around the history, because it's really interesting history. And I think historical fiction readers do like that, we enjoy the history around the story, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
so,
and I think
there's a lot of stuff like that on the web. So yeah, and with the Bristol Suffragettes book, there's a section on my website which has got a lot of extra information, a lot of free downloads as well about suffragettes and so on. So yeah, so if anyone wants to find out more about that, they can have a look on the web. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's very nice to talk to you today.
Yes.
And good luck with your new books coming out.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please stop by iTunes and rate and leave a review. This helps make the show more visible. For free resources, show notes, and other helpful content, join the community at beginselfpublishing.com.